what's going to happen in our town in the next few weeks. I have a few people to thank before we get started. I want to thank Michael J. of Techsperience for donating his time and expertise in setting up the audio system, the Kent Community Fund for funding the American Sign Language interpreter, and all the various volunteers who are greeters, timers, question collectors, question screeners, and our media sponsor, the Litchfield Journal, and the League of Women Voters of Litchfield County for providing the know-how in running this afternoon's dialogue. Darlene Brady, who is our town clerk, wanted me to explain briefly how the voting process works for the selectmen in town. So, you may vote for only one candidate running for first selectman, and you may vote for only one candidate running for selectman. The first selectman will be chosen by the most votes cast for that specific office. Selectmen will be chosen by the most votes casted for the top two candidates, which includes the candidate that did not win the first selectman seat. So, for example, if the first selectman candidate A gets 500 votes, candidate B gets 400 votes, selectman candidate C gets 200, candidate D gets 300. The board would be, because it's a three-person board, candidate A would win first selectman, and then the two selectman positions would go to candidate B and candidate D. Okay, so just because candidate B does not win first selectman, there is still a chance they will be on the board of selectmen. So, I'd like to introduce our talent for the day. Number one, I'd like to introduce the moderator, Pat Donovan. She's the former president, here's Pat. She's the former president of the League of Women Voters of Litchfield County and former member of the board of the state League of Women Voters. She is a retired banker, mother, and grandmother, and she plays bridge in Kent. And then we have our two candidates. We have Ed Matson. Ed served on the Board of Selectmen for the town of Kent from 1999 through 2003. He currently works for the state of Connecticut Department of Transportation. He's been doing that for 21 years. He's a business owner of Edward Matson Lawn Care for 18 years. The Kent Volunteer Fire Department president and over 38 years member. He was the Lions Club past president and over a 20 years member. He was an Eagle Scout and a 60-year lifetime third-generation town of Kent resident. And then we have Jean Conlon Speck. Jean Speck has lived in Kent for 22 years and raised two children here. She's been an invaluable contributor to the life and well-being of Kent for 20 years as a leader in the Kent Volunteer Fire Department, serving as EMS chief for 5 years, and then as president the year the new firehouse was built. She was a member of the board of directors at the EMS Institute and served on a variety of other civic committees. Both of her children attended and graduated from Region 1 schools, where Jean was a member of the Kent Center School Committee that first considered full-time kindergarten. For the past years, Jean has worked for the State Department of Health Office of Emergency Medical Services as Regional EMS Coordinator, providing oversight to the EMS systems of 51 towns in Connecticut. So,
good afternoon. Let us start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank the candidates for their participation, and let the audience know that the order of the debate was determined by coin toss. The candidates will each have 2 minutes to respond to their questions. Each candidate will then have 30 seconds for a rebuttal. There will be a 2-minute closing statement. Ushers will continue to collect questions for the candidates as we proceed. Please hold your applause to the end of the debate, so allow the full time for the candidates to make their presentations. Our first question. This goes to Ed. What are your top 5 agenda items for this town?
My top 5 agenda items are well, first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody for coming. Second of all, we have issues in town, but I believe right now the town is being run pretty well. So as far as 5 major issues, I don't think there are 5 major issues in the town of Kent that will not have to be taken care of tomorrow. So my issues would be more of a platform idea rather than an issue. Affordable housing, Kent Center School, the fire department, town garage, sewer commission, highway, which is back into the town garage, and affordable housing.
Thank you. Jean, same question. 5 top agenda items.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks again for coming on this gorgeous day. I appreciate you all being inside when I bet everybody wants to be outside. Louder? Sure. Is that better?
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for coming on this gorgeous day. The 5 issues that I see that are coming ahead of us in the next 2+ years are the Scotticook BIA federal recognition that they're looking to apply for. Birch Hill and the other substance use disorder facilities in the town, I think, need to be addressed and have some watchdog efforts taken. The revitalization of the sidewalks, our economic vitality and viability leaning forward into even the next 5, 10, 15 years, and the staffing levels at the fire department as we foray into this sort of new age of lots of substance use disorder facilities in the town. It's created some fragility in our fire department. Thank you.
Ed, do you have any rebuttal?
Just that I think we have some great committees working on both our situations and our 5 top issues. And I, as selectman, and the other 2 selectmen, I will believe we will work well together to keep the issue and the way the town should be handling and taking care of.
The next question goes to Jean first. Yes, if you care to rebut.
Less of a rebuttal, more of an agreement. I think Ed's right on. We have a lot of people working, whether it's on the boards and commissions or working in citizen action groups that are on these 5 issues. I see the Selectman's office and the Board of Selectmen as crucial watchdogs in that. And I have a lot of years in process, and all of these issues are about process and making sure that those processes are followed.
Thank you. Jean, there's some thought that technology in the town is not up to modern standards. Do you think this is true, and how would you move to correct this?
Yes, yes, yes. It is true. Anyone who knows me knows that technology interests me a lot. I'm a technology officer at our fire department. I do a lot of technology work for OEMS in my daily role. I see high-speed internet access as a critical public utility. It is no longer something that some people can afford and some people can't. I agree wholeheartedly with Maria Horn's opinion and her work to bring high-speed internet everywhere. I was talking to someone who lives over on Macedonia Brook Road, and she has 0 connectivity outside her Wi-Fi at her house. We were at a standby doing some EMS work about a month ago, and we had no radio connectivity, like portable emergency radio connectivity. There are too many dead spots in town. I would work with the siting council, making sure that we as watchdogs are keeping and paying attention to what the siting council is doing. They're the organization in Connecticut that sees and places the towers around the state. I would also engage with FirstNet, which is the federal carrier that is standing up an emergency broadband system across the country, who have to, in 2 to 5 years, stand up 99% of broadband coverage for all emergency responders. I would make sure that that continues forward. I would look to our ordinances, to P&Z, to make internet more affordable, to make internet more available around town, and also look to some grant monies too, so that it can be affordable to everybody. Thank you.
Ed, your thoughts on technology in the town?
Well, my views of technology, I never used to really use it till recently, and now I understand how important it is. And I have download speed at my house right now is about 4. Spectrum wanted $13,000 to run the line up in my conduit, and now they're down to like $3,000. And I think it's a major issue in Kent. If we're going to expect younger people to move here and possibly work for Hartford from home, they have to have internet that's going to connect and be reliable and an option for everyone, not just the people that can afford to have the expensive internet. So I think technology is very, very important, and the town of Kent should be looked into.
Thank you. Jean, anything else?
Yeah. I love maps. Everything that we do has a place to it, and I think that we as a town, the Board of Selectmen and the various town offices can leverage technology way better than we have been. It's a, you know, it can be a medium lift, it can be, you know, a cultural struggle as some folks sort of enjoy the what they've had, but there are simple ways to improve the engagement that we have with you through technology, and I really think that we need to invest some time and funding into that.
Thank you. All right. Ed, why are you running for the elected position in the town of Kent?
I am running because I had the privilege of being asked by the Republican Town Committee to be their candidate for first selectman. It was not one of my brilliant ideas that I had lots of in town growing up. I was a selectman before. I didn't expect to win, but I did. The issues were the same at the time. The Scatterbrook Indians were the issue, the transfer station, the sewer treatment plant, Kent Center School renovation. Actually, the sidewalks were also an issue back in 1999. So it's an honor to be asked to run for first selectman, and that's why I'm here.
And Jean, same question. Why are you choosing this office?
I'm choosing this office because I think I'm at a place in my life and in my career where I have a lot of skills that I've learned in the past 9.5 years at the Department of Public Health, writing legislation, fighting for legislation, rewriting regulations that have been in place for over 17 years for emergency medical services. Seeing how the legislative process goes, and I believe that I can take those skills and the sort of dog on the hunt attitude that I have that my colleagues up at OEMS often tease me about, because when I get something in my sights, I will fight for it, I will pay attention, and I will get down into the weeds. And if that's what it takes to help this town that I love so much, then I'm willing to do that. And I think it's time for me to sort of come back to Kent and take those skills that I've learned over the last 9.5 years and help the town. Thank you.
Anything to add?
About regulations, I hate regulations, to be honest with you. I understand why they're needed, but we have, in the fire department, we started out with a tiny little book of about 12 pages. It was only this tall and about that wide, and they survived 50 years. Now we have stacks of regulations, and we have to look up a regulation for a regulation because can we do that or can we not do that? We have to look 2 pages, or now we go on the internet to look it up, which makes it a lot easier. We have to follow regulations, but sometimes over-regulation hurts more than it helps.
I love regulations. I don't love that we have lots of them. I feel there are many topics and subjects locally, at the state level, federally. where we overregulate, absolutely. I love regulations because I can understand them and then reproduce and communicate them to the public, to my EMS chiefs, to the Region 1 Council President, to the COG, in a way that they can understand. And that's how I love regs, and that's why I love that language. I think it's it's foundational. These are all foundationals. That's why I love regulations.
Thank you. Hey, Jean. Kent is celebrated for its beauty and its natural resources. Some acknowledge climate change and prioritize environmental safety. Others deny climate change and prioritize business and other related issues. Why do you identify, or which do you identify, and how would you bring those standards forward?
I most definitely identify with the climate change, that climate change is a real thing. And I spent 5 hours, 6 hours at the transfer station a couple of weeks ago. And people had been telling me for a long time, go to the transfer station, you'll learn so much about how the town functions. Not only did I learn a lot about how the town functions, but John Kaminsky walked me around and showed me all the different pieces and parts and how much recycling that we do at the transfer station. I had no idea. I think that we need to take climate change extremely seriously, not only for us, but I have 2 kids, and hopefully someday they'll have 2 kids or more kids. I think we have to take the now and do the best that we can do to ensure the future of our grandkids and the future of our neighbors' grandkids. And I also think that there's more that we can do through the transfer station. I feel that I can make a difference in every single person, and every single that's taking up a seat here today can make a difference. And I think if we join those forces, we're going to start to make a bigger difference. And that's what we need to do. It's that one person at a time.
Ed, your thoughts, climate change and business priorities?
My thoughts on climate change, I understand it. I understand the people that are concerned about it. But I look out at the road and they all drove their cars here, most of them gasoline. And I know one gentleman has an electric car here, and he talked to me about it a couple weeks ago. We all talk about climate change, but we never seem to change into electric vehicles, solar power. That's not cost effective. I can't afford to put solar panels on my house. I think we really need to work together as small towns, and to go to Hartford, to go to Washington. If we're going to solve climate change, it has to start in your own town first, and then move forward.
Thank you. Jean, any rebuttal? Right. Do you have anything else you'd like to add, Ed?
No.
Good. All right. Ed, next question, you start. The new Cricket Valley Power Plant is ready to open in Dover, New York, 5 miles from Kent. How can Kent improve on its participation in regional planning and make surrounding towns work together more effectively so that when concerning ideas like this gas-fired energy plant are proposed, we can have an informed opinion or mount opposition?
Well, I actually have the app on my phone, and I've been asking the Cricket Association if they've started monitoring the air at this point in time, and I haven't seen any results where they've been monitoring yet and sent them to me. I don't understand why it took so long to start opposing a project that's almost completed when it should have maybe started before it was started. So I think to be worried about the air quality is very important in our town, because the air is going to go this way. And most people that have lived here their whole lives knew that in the very beginning, kind of like the asphalt plant in New Milford knew that when they were creating asphalt, the smoke was going to blow down through the lower valley. I think we can regulate it, we can watch it, but it's going to be hard to fight something that's already built.
Thank you. Jean?
So as Ed said, Cricket Valley is built. It's ready to come online. From everything I've been reading and hearing, it's coming online in December. Fortunately, we have a great group of citizen scientists in the Western Connecticut Clean Air Alliance that have already started measuring the local air quality. So they're going to be measuring the baseline air quality right now. They're doing it. They have joined with 6 other towns who also have air monitoring stations. The Kent School has been very generous in actually adding this air monitoring to their curriculum for their students. So it's a joint effort, and there's a great team that's behind this. They've also engaged with Maria Horn, who has been involved with this since day one, since we realized that this was looming over us. Our job as the Board of Selectmen, and my job as the first Selectman, would be to have the Western Connecticut Clean Air Alliance provide that data, which they're looking to do in the next month. Take that data, share it with all of you in a publicly consumable way. You don't want to see it in rows and columns. We need to see it in a way that you all can understand so that there's visibility and engagement. You guys need to be included in this. That's going to enable us to swiftly act by informing and partnering with Maria Horn, with the Department of Environmental and Energy and Environmental Protection, with Attorney General Tong, who already knows this, and he's contacted his counterpart in New York State to fight this fight. Like I said, we're not alone in this. I think we're in a great place as far as being watchdogs, and I, as the first Selectman, would be continuously reaching out to the representatives and the legislation down in Washington if necessary. Thank you.
Anything to add, Ed?
No.
Thank you. And Jean, I assume your thoughts are complete? Jean, what ideas do you have about how we can attract more young people and young families to Kent?
So we were a young family when we chose Kent. I was not born into Kent. We don't have relatives who live here. I don't have any longer term than 22 years, but we used to drive here on our motorcycles before, when Sam was very young, and we would stop at the Villager and sort of pine over, wouldn't it be great to live here? And we were finally able to do that. Very, very lucky to do that. Young families and young professionals are more, they have less stuff. They don't want stuff. They want less permanence. And I think that if we were able to create some affordable housing, that's in that gap between the house that is on the market that you see every day in all of the real estate flyers, and that affordable housing piece. Massachusetts has a great model called cottage housing, where there are houses, standalone houses, smaller standalone houses that are more at an entry price point for young families, for young professionals who have that sort of less permanence about them. We have to make those options available for them. And the way to do this is through their tax incentives that we can take advantage of at the state level that could open up people's property to donate part of their land for these cottage housing parcels. And I think that would be one of the great ways to get more young families. Also, our park and rec, our revitalization of the Kent Commons Park and Emery Park, I think are critical to getting young families into Kent as well.
And any rebuttal, Ed?
Ken has been dealing with losing the younger population for probably 40 years. I don't know if I would be reading a newspaper ad, living in another area and say, Kent's going to build affordable housing, now you can come live here, because where are you going to work? If you don't have a place to work, you're not going to be able to afford even affordable housing. And furthermore, a lot of younger people, my son goes to Champlain College in Vermont, and he said, come back to Kent, I'm staying in Burlington. You know, and he may come back when he's 40. And But unless you have business, unless you have a sustainable internet business that people can work from home, people are not going to come here. And one of my thoughts in the very beginning about the land trust was, wouldn't it be great if a land trust got a piece of property, built a small little house on it, taxed it, and gave someone the use to use it as the overseer of the property, live in it, not own it, but live in it, pay some taxes on it until they can afford a house. I know the land trust is a major issue in the town, but I don't think people want to live in affordable housing in clusters in the town of Kent.
Well, I think we kind of missed on our timing there. That was rebuttal, right? Should have been 30-second rebuttal, but all is forgiven, I guess, since we can't take it back. All right.
May I have 30 seconds? Rebuttal? I get 30 seconds?
Yes.
I thought I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought he was doing it was 2 minutes.
No,
Okay.
he- So, I don't know, you want 30 seconds on the
Go
next
ahead.
question?
I was under time on the other ones.
So now we're on cumulative. All right, Ed. What ideas do you have about how we can, oh no, I'm sorry, now I'm the one. What are your thoughts about about our public education for our youth of Kent may look like in the coming years for elementary, middle, and high school age students?
Well, we're losing population in our schools, and that's been going down from 700 down to 139, 138, the high school level. Kent Center School is losing population. The education is still outstanding in the town of Kent. You can get what you need, and if you look at the 3 private schools we have in town, what a luxury. If we could possibly make some agreements with the schools that they already offer very well scholarships to young people in town to go to the private schools in Kent is excellent. I think education's fine. We need to do some things. I was on the Selectman at the time, and I actually made the motion for the Kent Center School $8.2 million expansion. I felt at the time it was needed. So I support education 100%.
Jean?
There are laws in Connecticut for each town to be responsible for the education of the children in their town. That's an important law, and I think we need to continue to fulfill that law. A lot of folks are concerned about the declining enrollment, but I think we have to look at less a short-term trend line and look at a longer-term trend line. 10, 15 years ago, we were on an upswing. I think we need to flex for those times when we're on the downswing. I think if I were voted in as first selectman, I would do a serious deep dive on all budgeting. We're getting right into budget season. Budgets are my wheelhouse. When I was in retail, I spent a lot of time dealing with very, very large budgets. I think it's time to really take a look at all those budgets, including the Board of Ed budget, and see if there are any cost savings. That said, the Board of Ed, I met with Marty Lindenmeyer a few weeks ago, and he talked to me about all of the projects and initiatives that they've been working on. They've started successfully a program where they're inviting out-of-town students to pay a tuition to attend Kent Center School. I think that's great. As we see the enrollment declining around us, I think that we can reach out to those towns to offer that, because one of the things to get families to come here and get families to stay here is having rockstar amazing public education. My kids got a great education through the town, and I think that we need to keep leaning forward and be that sort of watchdog on the fiscal side for the Board of Ed budget.
Ed, any rebuttal?
I talked to Marty also about the lowering or having a set fee to allow children to come from other towns. I think the idea is great, but I think as a taxpayer's perspective on the whole thing, Where if I'm sitting as first selectman and this gets passed and someone comes in and says my taxes are $10,000 a year, but you're only charging someone $4,500 to come from Sherman to Kent Center School, when it's costing the taxpayer $16,000 to educate them technically in their budget, is that fair to the taxpayer? So it's something the taxpayers are going to have to think about in the town and make that decision, not me or anyone else.
Jean? Good job. Okay, thank you. All right. Jean, the job of first selectman requires a great deal of diplomacy and the ability to talk to people of all income levels and all personality types, many of whom are angry or frustrated. The first selectman gets phone calls at all hours of the day or night. How will you handle this?
Currently, in my work with the Department of Public Health, I oversee about 130 EMS systems. That includes large commercial services, third-party EMS standalone organizations, volunteer, career, municipal fire departments, as well as police departments. All those chiefs have me to call when they have a question or a problem, or I have a question about the regulations. This is my wheelhouse. I deal with people who are upset. There was recently a PTSD bill that was passed at the state legislature that EMS was left out of. And my phone was blowing up 24/7. All of my EMS chiefs have my cell phone number. Maybe that's too much availability, but I don't see the first selectman as that dissimilar, because I've seen Bruce over the last 10 years probably more in the road, in a parking lot, in the firehouse than I have, and on the weekends and at night, than I have seen him at, for me personally, at the first selectman's office. That position is a huge commitment. I see it as a huge commitment, and the availability of that person to the public is important because we need to engage with you all. You all are our bosses.
Thank you. Ed?
This is a 30-second. Okay. I can communicate with everyone.
No, this is just 2 minutes.
That's what I thought, but he put up to 30 seconds.
No, he's answering.
That's what you did the last time too, right? Put up to 30 seconds. Okay. I can communicate very well with anyone. I can help anyone. Somebody needs their lawnmower broken, I can go and mow their lawn for them. I'd be more than happy to. I think Bruce looks pretty darn well for answering all those phone calls in the middle of the night. And he still smiles when you talk to him. I think the whole Board of Selectmen has done a terrific job. But we're trying to work together, work on the personal agendas. My knuckles are all scratched up this morning from helping strip the roof of the pavilion at the Antique Machinery Show with the Lions Club. I think you have to be able to work with everyone. And you have to listen to people, and you might roll your eyes when they leave maybe sometimes. And you might say, this is really nice. So I think living in town and working with everyone, fire department, the selectmen, working with Jean, working with Rick Levy over the years, I think I'm ready and I can communicate with everyone.
Thank you. Jean, any rebuttal?
And I agree with Ed. Ed and I sit shoulder to shoulder twice a month. He is president, I as secretary of the fire department, and we work many, many hours besides those two-ish that we sit in the meeting room at the firehouse doing the work in the fire department. I think anybody in this room can understand the commitment of both of us, of Bruce Adams, of Lori Schiesel before, Ruth Epstein before, Bill Tobin before, and recognize that this is more than just a 9-to-5 day job, as it were. And I think I'm additionally qualified to be able to listen to the people whenever they want to be listened to.
Thank you. Bill, what can we do to improve accessibility for all disabilities from all walks of life? Speaking of technologies, providing sign language interpreters, and other accessible services that are needed by any individual with disabilities.
Is that for me?
Yes, Ed.
Oh,
Sorry.
I said Lil, okay. I think the town has come a long ways because of the state has been helping us. They finally put a crosswalk that people with disabilities can actually use. That was finally done, and it's being done throughout the state. Kent Center School's being updated constantly. That was done 18, 19 years ago when we added a lot more bathrooms for handicapped people. I'm not too familiar about the state and the federal regulations, but I think our town is working well. I know the zoning, new zoning rules and regulations have a lot more. In order to build something or modify something, you have to add space so people can get in and out of your offices and buildings and stores. We still have some way to go, but I think we're working in the right direction.
Jean?
Could you repeat the question?
What can you do to improve accessibility for all disabilities from all walks of life? Speaking technologies, providing sign language interpreters, and other available services that are needed by any individual with disabilities.
When I was in college, I struggled with my foreign language requirement and was able to convince my advisor to let me take American Sign Language for 2 semesters in order to fulfill my foreign language requirement. So I'm very grateful to that person. And it was really an interesting journey that I took. We had a couple of field trips, and seeing how people who use their other senses to help keep them engaged in the community was really fascinating to me. One of the big things that we can do to help with accessibility, and I know this is going to come up later, is to get the sidewalks fixed. If you have ever seen anyone in a wheelchair trying to navigate the sidewalks, or with a walker, or pick someone up with the ambulance because they fell because they're a senior and can't get around with their cane because it goes like this, knows that's a big piece of making more accessibility to people with disabilities in town. I also think that we should look into some unique programs. I've seen down on the shore, just in the last few weeks, they created a program to give mobility to folks who want to get down onto the beach. I think that's amazing. I think we can do that with our natural resources, and we really should be looking at grants, looking at the different programs that happen around the state and around the country so that we welcome more of all people to the town.
Ed, do you have anything to add?
No.
Thank you. Jean, I'm sure not going to rebut yourself. Jean, what are your feelings on the questions of 2-year versus 4-year terms for selectmen?
That's a difficult question to answer because I'm sort of talking about myself and my next 2 years or 4 years or down the road. I think it's tough. We see it with our own commissioner. Every time a new governor comes in, they bring in their own team, and so all those agency level commissioners are replaced, and those are appointments. And we see the work that is going on by all the boots on the ground folks, all the employees that do the day-to-day work and the planning and the projects, and that there's often a hiccup or a gap where the new commissioner comes in with her new team of senior leadership, and so everybody has to sort of to brief in that new leadership team, and it can slow the process of things down. So 2 years or 4 years, I think with a 4-year, I think the best person to answer this would be Bruce Adams. But I think going to a 4-year term would enable that process to happen, obviously less often, and I think it would create a little bit more of a seamless continuity between terms.
Ed?
This issue was actually brought up at the debate back when I was running for Selectman candidate, between the 2 and the 4-year term. It never got changed in 19 years, so I would say that people are happy with it right now. It makes it difficult for someone to come in knowing they only have a 2-year term, but usually when you select the correct candidate, that person might run unopposed for 8 or 9 years anyway. So that's, doesn't matter.
Thank you. Jean, adding anything?
I do. I think the most important part, the most important piece of this is you all. I think a survey would be a really great way to find out if the town of Kent, the people who vote those people in, are interested in even thinking about changing that term length. I think surveys are a really valuable way to get feedback from community, and our community is a great size to be able to do that, whether that's paper surveys or electronic surveys. That all can be worked out, but I think you guys should tell us what you want. I think that's important.
Ed, anything to add?
And that's exactly what I said. It should be up to the townspeople, whether they want to continue with the 2 or the 4-year term.
Okay. Ed, can we get the dump to expand its hours to at least 1 day during the week?
I know it's been discussed. I actually just talked to a gentleman that was, he actually called me, that they were leaving on Thursday to go back to the city, and they had their trash, and they were wondering what their trash was going to be like if it sat from Thursday till the following week. So it is an issue. I don't know if it's cost effective or not, but as selectman, I would be more than happy to look into it and find out from the people that use the system if they would be willing to either pay more or shut hours down on a Sunday afternoon or Saturday afternoon to accommodate for the 1 day during the week transfer station open. And I also know that contractors would like to see a dumpster with it open so they can come in and use that service more often during the week. But that would be up to technically the owners of the transfer station that pay their ticket if they want to pay more and if they want to expand the transfer station.
Thank you. Jean?
I think that's a great idea. I think it's been talked about for a long, long time. I've been hearing it since we initially moved to town 22 years ago. I think there are ways to improve the access to the transfer station now, and this goes back to the technology piece. If you were, say, a weekender, and you could go online any day of the week, 24/7, and buy a temporary transfer station pass for 1 weekend, for 1 month, that you would have in your email inbox within 10 seconds that you could take to the transfer station to show them, would that be something that would create options for people? I do also think that we need to look into the costs of how much it costs to run the transfer station. There are also limits and scheduling issues with how our garbage and recyclables move out beyond our town, and those have to be considered, and never knew this until I spent the day at the transfer station. Again, it was very fascinating. And I think working with John Kaminsky to see what his thoughts are and what he hears every day on the weekends when he's there as well, I think are important. And as well, the budgetary constraints.
Anything to add, Ed?
Do I get 30 seconds?
Yes.
I made the mistake as selectman of suggesting townwide garbage removal at one point. And the people that went to the transfer station, I wanted to strangle me for commenting about it. They love that place. They love going. They love going and seeing each other. They love going to the flea market, bidding for free. So I'm telling you this, I'm not going with townwide garbage pickup. I'm staying at the transfer station because I don't want to get beat up in the parking lot after. I think it comes all down to cost. And if you add another day, is it going to be worth it? Oh, just yell. You can yell. Time out. Sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, I'm looking at the audience.
Jean? Thank you. Jean, Swift House is in serious disrepair. What are your plans to fix it now that the town owns it?
We've had a couple of meet and greets at the Swift House, and I learned a lot about that building. I think it's an important structure. I think it's an interesting, interesting that the town owns it. I think that there are options. We need to truly get an assessment of the condition of that building. If you stand inside that house, it's in pretty rough shape. From cosmetic to looking at the sight lines in the rooms, they don't necessarily add up the way that your brain would expect them to add up. But I think we need to do an assessment and find out the viability of that building. That said, if it were a place that we wanted to keep as the town, and again, we have a couple of properties in town that we're already using for public access, we have to figure out and create a plan of how we would make that space a usable space that's different or better than or more desirable than the community house. So there are different spaces, but we can't just have them all on the books because they've always been on the books. And I think we need to have a plan. So having a plan is going to be the start to moving forward.
Thank you, Ed.
I was also in the Swift House, and the squirrels were in the wall that day. And a lot of people were frightened about it, but it didn't really bother me because when I was young, as a kid, I lived in a lot of apartments that had squirrels going up and down the walls. Immediately, if I was a selectman, I would try to get a group together to reassess the buildings. I believe we had a group years ago that went around each building. There were carpenters, roofers, electricians that we put on a little group, and they went around and did a quick assessment of the town. Came back to the selectmen, gave recommendations. Because that's the group you need to go in and look and see and get some ideas. And then it's up to the town what they want to do with the building. Me personally, it needs some work. It needs to get rid of the rodents in. It needs to be pressure washed, get the mold that's growing on the outside off. But isn't it wonderful to take your children into an old, uneven, unlevel house and show them how people used to live? I'm caretaker right now at a house up in North Kent, north of Kent, that was built in 1740 and added on to 3 times, and it's totally original the way it was except for the kitchen when you walk in the front door. It's great for our kids to see how people used to live in the past. So I think working with the Swift House is going to be either a major amount of money or no money. It's going to be up to the townspeople what they wish, but first you have to start with a group. It's going to assess it, look at it, all the buildings, and that's where I'll go from there.
Jean, any rebuttal?
Yes. I live squirrels in my house and bats in my house every single day. My house is 200 and I don't even know anymore, 280 or something years old. And it's charming and wonderful. It's also a gigantic financial responsibility, and I think that we need to make sure we take that into consideration. I think the Swift House could also be, as well as the ambulance barn behind it, could possibly, thinking outside the box, be an option for that entry-level housing. Imagine a family living in that house, a professional living in the upstairs, turning the upstairs of the ambulance barn into a great little apartment. I think those are great options that we need to consider.
Thank you. Ed, anything?
Well, the ambulance barn is a great idea, however, it doesn't have a foundation underneath it. That was actually moved. It has one of the original silo elevators in it, the rope elevators that used to be over back here, and they used to unload grain from the railroad, and they used to use the elevator to move the grain bags up and down in it. I think it would cost such a fortune to update that into with the regulations and the standards that are in place now, that it would be cheaper not to tear it down and start over new. But I'm much in favor of taking care of our buildings in Kent.
Ed, are there any plans to improve the paved roads, in particular South Kent Road?
I like the way you laughed at that one. That road supposedly is getting on the books now to be paved and redone within the next 2 years.
all I need to say.
Jean?
I drive the roads a lot. I have driven the roads a lot in ambulances, both in the front and in the back, and anybody who's done that can absolutely attest to doing patient care in an ambulance on South Kent Road is an adventure. Especially when you have a critical patient, you're doing CPR on that patient. We need to make sure that our roads are in the best condition possible. I don't know when every road is going to be paved. I think that what roads are going to be paved when should be 100% visible to every person in town. I think there should be a specific webpage that talks about the projects that are on the books, that are coming into being on the books, what the time frame is, and what the priority is. That said, I had an interesting conversation, multiple conversations with people about potholes. Potholes are another big topic, who knew? And the way that potholes get reported are either to the first selectman's office via a phone call, and Bruce is nodding, or to someone else in the town hall, or to Rick. I think there can be a better process, and I think that if we use technology that is out there right now, that we can engage you all, not only in reporting potholes, but reporting down trees, down wires when there's a weather incident. This is all simply done through current technology right now, where you could open an app on your phone, fill out a four-field form, and that information goes directly to Rick and is populated in a dashboard and prioritizes those potholes, so he knows which ones to attend to first without having to drive around town to all of them. So that little app can be used in a million different ways to create better visibility and to improve our roads in the order that they should be improved.
Any rebuttal?
Yep, South Kent Road is a state road, just so you all know that. The state of Connecticut actually has a website that you can go on and report potholes, unsafe conditions. So if all of you are concerned about South Kent Road getting paved sooner than later, I suppose you should send one of those messages. Go online if you get it at home, and do it every day, nonstop. As far as the town roads go, there already is a plan in place for which roads will be paved in the future out. If you look at the capital plan, it shows the bridges are going to be replaced. So as far as potholes go, yeah, it's great to report them, but it can be there today and gone tomorrow. So there's kind of a pothole thing in the spring here. Most of our roads have no base, and that's why the oil and sealing them, stoning them is a great project. It works quite well.
Thank you.
Time's up.
Jean?
I was talking about the town road, sorry, I misspoke. I think it's really important that I don't, as a taxpayer, as somebody who lives in town, I'm not going to go to the capital plan. That's not where I want to go to find out about what projects are prioritized how. There are many people who can't be bothered with looking at an Excel spreadsheet. I don't disagree with that. I think that information needs to be more visible and more consumable to the public.
As a follow-up, Jean, what are your views on closing certain roads to all people during the summer months?
Another hot topic. I think we're talking about the old North Kent Road.
Not sure.
I assume. I'm getting there's a lot of nods. So it's a conundrum, because if we open that road, people use it for recreation. It's, I believe at the end of the road, it's state and federal land. And we see the results of that land being used by the public with no organized way. I do think closing roads arbitrarily to prevent people from going down them to recreate at the end is problematic. I think we need to work with the state and the federal government to figure out how to be able to keep those recreation areas open, identify them, and and be able to manage them. It's going to cost some money, so where do we find that money? We would need to find it in grants, but I think, I mean, that property is a property down at the end of North Kent Road that we have taken all of our dogs to over the last 22 years, and it's a great place to recreate. I think we need to figure out how to manage it.
Ed, your thoughts?
Closing the roads to me is a major disappointment. It comes back to people's respect of town land, state land. We're getting a lot of people coming up from Bridgeport, New Haven, Danbury, that will use those areas. They'll use it for a whole day, have a great swim time, and then leave all their bags and trash behind. That's the issue that we have to clean up, and then the fire department has to go and help them when they're stranded or a family member's broken a leg. In the old days, in the Bracken Farm, which was on North Kent Road, you never saw any garbage because people had respect. And we've lost a lot of younger people that come up here and use that. I don't understand why they do it, and I think the only way we're going to do it is either have people ourselves go through it and monitor it closely. If you want to hire more police, that's another issue. I don't think you're going to get the state police just to run through on a weekly shift to monitor it. I think it's a major issue, and I think it needs to be looked into because we had the same problem on Scatticook Road, North Kent Road, River Road. The trash is unbearable on weekends, and the liabilities for the poor people have to walk in with 50 other people that are all partying there, and they say someone drowned over there, and they're continuing with their party, and you're there to find the person that's drowned. I think it's coming down to respect and finding out how we can change it.
Thank you. Jean?
I don't want to blame the young people. I have two of them. One is sitting in the back of the room and is a vegan, which I'm very proud of, and the inside of his car looks like the inside of a trash can because he will pick up every single piece of trash that he sees along his way, along his day, working as a landscaper. So I don't want to blame anybody. I want to figure out how to open that area back up. Another piece that I think will help in the management is if we make it accessible. Creating a sort of rail system that runs along that river is a big idea, but I think it's a really great idea. And if we were to create access throughout, we would be able to, there would be more respect, I believe.
Thank you.
Thanks, sorry.
Ed, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the gun shop in town? Is it too close to the nursery school and the public schools?
By the regulation that they're performing or by where it is now?
I guess from this question by where it is now.
I think, you know, the interesting part is I think a lot of people in Kent weren't even aware that it was there, that didn't have any issues with guns until the issue got brought up. The gentleman runs a great business, state regulated, federal regulated, and I think by bringing it to the town ordinance with 1,000 feet within everything, I understand people have concerns about guns. I would also have the same concern about having a liquor store within 1,000 feet of your school, because if you're saying someone is going to drink, get a gun, and go kill somebody, or could you do it the other way around? Could you buy a gun, go drink, and then go to the school? The 1,000-foot regulation from any, which is being proposed, from any school, any park, any church, any liquor store. I think alcohol is just as dangerous as any gun, and it's killed more people in the town of Kent on the roads than guns ever have. So I think we have to be careful. I think the gentleman that has the gun shop in Kent is very well respected, very liked. And like I said, a lot of people in this room probably wouldn't even know it was there unless this ordinance got brought up.
Thank you. Jean, your thoughts?
The gun store went through the process that is on the books right now. They went through the federal process to be able to have a gun store. They went through the state process for their licensing. There's now the proposal to change the local ordinances. I think that it's important for the P&Z to walk through that process. They are in government, everything's about process. But there are parts of the town government that are there to do the job of the different parts of town government. P&Z opened their hearing 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. There were a fair amount of people there. They held it open. I think it's important for anybody who has strong feelings about changing this regulation that they should go to that meeting and they should be heard, because this all affects you. And these decisions should be made with you guys all engaged. I think that's the most important piece of this. My role as first selectman would be to listen to you all and to follow the process. It's not my process, it's not the first selectman's process to go through. But I think everybody's voice needs to be heard. My voice is only one voice in the 29-ish hundred of the residents that live here. And I think you all need to come to the next meeting and have your voice be heard so that the P&Z can rule based on everybody's voice.
Thank you. Ed, rebuttal?
No.
Jean, I hope I pronounced this correctly. What is your position on the Shinnecock? Shattuck?
Scattergoat.
All right, Shattuck recognition.
So this has become another of that top 5 hot topics. It's an important topic for everybody who lives in this town, whether you spend 20 hours a week or every single hour a week here. This is something that has been ongoing for as long as Bruce has been first selectman and even before then. The concerns are the land claim. The concerns, I believe, are the sewer plant, what would happen if that sewer plant were to go away or if the business relationship were to drastically change, and the other unknowns. Right now, again, it's process. Bruce Adams, Maria Horn, they've been to Hartford, they've talked to the AG's office. They're already engaged with, even before the application, there's no application on file as far as we know. We have to make sure, because there are a lot of short turnarounds on when to respond to this application, we have to make sure that we're there, ready to respond, ready to protect the rights and the land of the people of Kent. Dick Blumenthal is involved, Chris Murphy is involved, the same citizen action group of Ken Cooper and Jane Kriegel, they're all involved. This is something that is being paid very close attention to, and it has the potential to affect everybody in town. So I think it's important for us, and as for selectmen, I need to be that head watchdog to make sure that all of these parts are being attended to as this very dynamic situation is gonna move forward.
Thank you. Ed, your position?
Well, I had the luxury of being a selectman at the time when the Skylick Union filed their first petition. And it was hours and hours and hours of work. And Lori Cecil saved Rick Levy and I by doing a lot of the background work with Ken Cooper also. It was all new to us at the time. And we didn't understand a whole lot about it. The regulations had changed. We need to definitely stay focused on the issue. Just for a little history, during the Bush administration, I know this isn't political, but they raised the regulations to become federally recognized. During the Obama administration, they actually lowered the standards down below what the Bush regulations were. I don't see this issue going away, and I think we have a good group of people, good core group of people that are working on this, but it is a major concern for the town, and who makes the decision on how much money we're going to spend on it? The townspeople, the selectmen? I think it should come down to the townspeople. It's 1,200 acres that could be possibly involved in this. It is a major issue. The major issue is that if they become fairly recognized, they could buy a piece of property in town and add it to their list. So it would be free tax on things, stores. It could be very detrimental to the town of Kent. Thank you.
Jean, any rebuttal?
Just an addition, I think the Board of Selectmen made a resolution a few years ago to keep Jeff Sankowitz, who is the town attorney, to keep him on for that consistency. And the amount of information that he's been able to share with at the last Board of Selectmen meeting has been really invaluable, and I think he's going to be a key player in making sure that all of that historical value is kept and used in order to respond to this possibly pending application. And Bruce Adams, again, I think we can't say enough about how great he's been as the watchdog over the past 10 years for this.
Ed, anything else?
Oh, I get a 30-second. I
Yes.
would just like to say that the bigger issues is the Indian Bureau of Affairs in Washington, D.C. You never know what they're going to do. And that's why it's so important that this poor group of people have to stay up to it and stay aware of everything that's going on, because it could change at any time, like everyone is sitting in the office and saying, we don't even know if they applied yet or not, because they don't tell you. So that's why it's so important to have such a great group of people that are all in this together and working toward it.
Moving on, traffic. Jean. There's a thought that we have a traffic problem in Kent. What do you think, and how would you mitigate these concerns or change the situation?
Do we have a traffic problem? The traffic that comes through Kent on the weekends, such as this weekend, is an issue. We have not only from a personal issue for everyone in here needing to get to the groceries, running to the IGA 5 minutes before they close because you know that it takes 3 minutes for you to get there, except today it is going to take you 9 or 11 minutes to get there. To issues for response for the fire department and EMS. Many weekends, this weekend included, those of us who live north from Kent, we actually might go over Cobble Road to get to the firehouse on a day like today. So those issues are real. I think, again, with this is a state road, so it's process. Are there unique new technologies that we can use as far as doing something with the lights, rerouting traffic? But why would we reroute traffic if that brings people, directly into our main street and the place where we want them to come on the weekends? So I think it's a difficult issue to address. I don't think speed bumps are the answer. I think speed bumps will just aggravate people and bring more issues that could be problematic. I think there are ways to reach out beyond our town and find solutions.
Ed, traffic?
When I was a kid, traffic was getting behind a hay wagon. I think traffic in the town of Kent is terrific, to be honest with you. Yeah, us locals might complain about it, but I think we know enough about the routes to go around and bypass it. We know on a weekend like today when the fall leaves are out, it's going to be busy in town. I think Kent thrives off of people that come to it. So I think traffic is an issue, but isn't it great to see our town filled with people walking through and shopping at the stores instead of like when I was a kid and the only 2 stores on Main Street were basically the auto parts store. The Watsons then closed. There weren't very many stores open, and it's great to see the town filled with people doing things. I don't mind traffic. I know how to get around it on weekends, and I sometimes don't go to the IGA on weekends because I make sure I go during the week for that reason. So welcome traffic. I think it's good for the town. It looks good. I think you talk to the people. I've learned so much the last couple of weeks over on the Republican tent that we had, talking to people that were from Danbury, Southbury, visiting both of our booths. It was nice to talk to people. They love the town. They love coming, so we have to deal with traffic. So, and by the way, speed bumps you can't have on the state road. So that's it.
Jean, anything else? Ed, I assume you've finished? All right. Ed, what do you see as the changing demographics in Kent in the next 5, 10, and 15 years? What will these changes require of the town in terms of services and investment?
Honestly, I hope the town doesn't change. I like the town of Kent the way it is. I think you will see different services for the ambulance and the fire department with the addition of the Birches and expansion of High Watch and some other, you might get another small nursing home in town. That would not affect the look of the town, the expansion. So I'm pretty pleased with the way the town of Kent is right now. The only expansion I see is possibly end up going into paid ambulance service at some point. More staffing for emergency services. And at some point, if the town keeps growing majorly, maybe possibly expanding the resident trooper program. I know that costs a lot of money, but we have 3 private schools that almost outnumber the townspeople on some days. So that's my issue. I'm happy with the town of Kent right now.
Thank you. Jean? Changing demographics.
I think the demographics are going to change somewhat, but because of the rural character of the town, we're not going to, we don't have apartment buildings, we don't have big city blocks of commerce. So it may change to some extent. I think the services that are going to change are the healthcare services, which I think are going to be really, really important to our town because our population is aging in place, and that's a great thing. That's what we want. We don't want a lot of nursing homes. We want us to all age in place. And the merger of New Milford, Sharon, Danbury, Norwalk Hospital into New Vance is going to provide more services to come up and be available in the rural areas. And I know just from my mom, from her aging in place here in Kent, it was tough to get some services to her. And I think that those services we'll see them more as New Vance expands its growth. And from demography, I think you'll see more people coming because they know that they can get healthcare services in this small town where 10 years ago was much more difficult. The other piece is I hear more and more about parents of independent school children coming and living part-time here, whether it's for their sports season or because they're having a difficult time adjusting. Those are also new people into our town who are going to start out living part-time but may come here and live permanently. I think the slight change in demography is going to only add to our economic vitality and our ability to continue to move forward in building our town the way that we want it built.
Anything to add?
Well, when I said nursing homes, I wasn't saying just nursing homes. I was talking about places to take care of the elderly people in the town of Kent. And also, at one point, years ago, the Planning and Zoning Board had talked about relieving some of the regulations on people to put buildings above garages and things that would be up to code for family members to move home and take care of them as they age. Like my sister just moved back from North Carolina. She's living with my mother currently. I'm up on the hill. Oh, I'm coming. I quit though.
Well, we've had a number of subjects and a lot of questions. I think it's time now to move to closing statements. And can we agree on who gets the first closing statement? I believe it's Ed.
I don't know. I won the toss but lost. How do you figure that?
Get to go first and then you get to go last. First and last.
No, I get to go first and first.
First. Because the loser gets to.
Okay, I have a short, is there only 2 minutes?
2 minutes,
Okay, I
2
didn't
minute
know
closing.
if, I've been thinking about this for a couple months. I wrote it down the last couple of days. I rewrote it today. Edward Matson, Kent means to me the past generations and further generations of people to live here as a community, help our friends and neighbors in daily life. Not having state, federal government run our town. Be respectful of all people, rich, middle class, or poor. Our town has survived over 200 years, and I hope it stays about where it is today. My leaders in town when I was young were Frank Miller, Bob Keene, Art Seabury, Bob Ward, Bob Bauer, Sweet Nelson, Bill Tobin, Maureen Brady, Eugene O'Mara, Ruth Batstone, my grandmother, Mrs. Evans, Benny Mattoon, Father Shelley, Jim Aiken, and Del Eads, for some of them. Me, never caring about a political party, respected them for the way they loved this town and everyone in it. I am Kent. I don't ask for thanks, but would rather be a silent leader. I like the great people I mentioned. I thank the Matson family for all the support and ask the Kent families to elect me as your first selectman to carry out this great little town traditions and values. Thank you.
First, I want to say thank you to the Kent Memorial Library for coming up with our this concept of civil conversation, civil discourse, and for the League of Women's Voters. Shout out from my mother-in-law, Helen Speck from Pennsylvania. She wanted to make sure that I said hi. She is a longtime fan and member of the League of Women Voters down from Weston. The Kent Memorial Library, I like information. I don't know if everybody here knows that the Kent Memorial Library is a private organization. I also don't know, and Wendy Murphy, thank you, I don't know if you're here, for including me in this little piece of information. There were 45,000 visits to the Kent Memorial Library last year. I had no idea that it was that high. I think that says a lot about the service that they provide and that they add to our sort of texture of our town. I love Kent. I've been sort of engaged in Kent for over 30 years. As you guys know, my husband and I used to come up here on our motorcycles and we'd stop at the Villager and hope that we could one day sort of move out of the lower Fairfield County existence. And in the last few months, thinking about this position, it occurs to me that good government takes hard work and it takes a people-centric approach to solving problems, creating opportunities, protecting our natural resources, improving and working to ensure long-term viability, fostering the commercial environment, and about 17 other things that were on my list, but I won't say them all because there's not enough time. There's a lot of work to be done to carry on the work that the first selectmen and the boards that come before me have done. I don't have all the answers, but I do have many of the skills that are needed to get this work done. And I'm really, at this point in my life and my career, ready to roll up my sleeves and do the hard work for this town. Thank you.
Well, I would very much like to thank the candidates for their participation and thank the audience for its time and attention. And most of all, get out on November 5th and vote.